This is what Knox County Schools, like when we talk at the meeting, we'll probably refer to as the one-pager. Only in Knox County Schools do they call a one-pager something that takes 2 pages, but they do at least have it printed on one. So this goes over the key points. If you break down the strategic plan proposal, you've got 3 key areas of focus. First one is to focus on every student. Second is to invest in our people. And the third is to partner with our stakeholders. So one of the things I wanted to do is just talk to you guys real quickly about why a strategic plan and how I've used it in the past, how I think many of the board members have used it in the past, and what I think this next one is for. 5 years ago, well actually 6, when Dr. McIntyre came on board, he met with just a huge group of people over that year to look at what our needs were, where we were, and assess from people what interest we had in going to whatever point with our schools. We then came out with a 5-year strategic plan that we've just finished utilizing. I will tell you that in my experience, once that document was finally approved, I returned to it very, very frequently. When there was an issue that we were discussing, I wanted to know how did that fit into where we say we were going. You know, with our kids, the direction for our staff, there were parts of it that were related to just our facilities. There were parts of it related to community engagement. And so I tended to go back to that a lot. It really was, for me, a working document. Some of the things that I think came out of that, and what I think you will find in a huge organization, is if there is not a dream of an endpoint in a doable amount of time, things still happen and you get things done, but nowhere near what you can get done if you set some goals and you set some direction. So one of the big things that we focused on 5 years ago, we knew that vouchers were coming down the line. We knew charter schools were coming down the line. There's always concern in public education about losing students to private schools and not meeting, and you do that, but not meeting a kid's needs. One of the big things was we knew that you couldn't have a cookie-cutter approach to education. Every kid was different. Every kid learned different. Every kid had different needs. And one of the ways to do that, particularly at the high school level, was to engage kids. Our graduation rate went up from 79% graduation to 89% graduation rate over that time period, actually over 10 years. I think a part of that is looking at what do we offer in high school. So we still have traditional high schools. Bearden's more of a traditional high school. Halls is more of a traditional high school. But we also have some non-traditional ones, or ones that kids can choose and families can choose. At West High School, we have an International Baccalaureate program that we've recently started. I think we're on year 3 of that. Hardin Valley was built during that time period, and Hardin Valley and Farragut both offer more of an academy approach. So if kids want to get their traditional high school, but also focus in on an area of specialty, they have that. Fulton and Austin East, we've revitalized some of the magnet programs with broadcasting and the arts. We opened up the Paul Kelly Academy, which is the school in a mall in East Town. And that deals with kids who actually were doing good, and they weren't in trouble, but there were things in life that were going to get in the way of them graduating from high school. And so that school had a projected, or the kids that were in that school had a projected pretty high rate of these kids are not going to graduate. And I think they have a graduation rate of about 72%, but that's 72% of the kids who weren't going to graduate anyway. It's been a great school. We opened up the Ellen STEM Academy with a pure focus on STEM education. And I'm not sure of all the numbers in that one yet. They just had their first graduating class. I think there were about 40 in that graduating class. And we're waiting on numbers there, but in talking to some of the students who did projects, I think the school doesn't have any admittance I mean, any kid can apply to go. It doesn't like they don't have to test out. Probably going to have one of our highest ACT averages in the whole county there with their focus. And then we are opening this fall the CTE high school, Magnet High School, and that's going to be out in Strawberry Plains. And so that's your technical, but it's recognizing, I think schools kind of went through this period of saying, you know, all kids now have to go to college. And the truth is, all kids don't go to college. And even if all kids went, there's a very low graduation rate within 4.5 years. So it's acknowledging that there are some highly skilled technical jobs with an associate's degree that these kids can have, and a huge workforce that is retiring and we don't have replacements for. And that will be our technical school. I don't know how many we have. Do you know how many are signed up for it? About 100?
About 125, right in that neighborhood, give or take.
And is that countywide?
Uh-huh. And all of these kind of special ones, they're offered, you know, they're not zoned, like that's not a zoned school, the LNN is not a zoned school. People choose to go there. Now, the IB program has a zoned to West High, but people outside of that zone can apply to go to the IB program.
How would transportation be supplied to those people that were going out there?
It's a little different. I don't know what the plan, if it's self-transportation.
No, there is.
This is Dr. Elizabeth Alves, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, and very glad she's here with me.
I recognized her.
Transportation is provided. It may not be door-to-door. I think the plan is to pick up students at their home zoned high school and transport them to and from.
And we kind of do something similar that
For LNN.
Right, at the LNN. And they also have at LNN a later start time to accommodate that. Anyway, the whole purpose of all of those was to look and say, we know to really get kids to graduate, they have to be engaged, and we have to be able to offer what meets their needs. I think it just shows a commitment to changing the way we've always done things. Just some of the other things that happened out of the last 5-year plan. We've changed middle school honors. You know, we offer many more honors classes in middle schools. We have a much higher rate of kids who are taking honors courses at the middle school in language arts, math, science. We're working on early literacy program. You know, we know that our kids have got to read by the time they get to 3rd grade, or they're just going to struggle the rest of their academic career. The evaluations were changed. There were ATEX bonuses. All of those things happened, and those bonuses, that ATEX for those who aren't teachers, was related to teacher performance and evaluation. And the thought was to have some type of merit pay in addition to just step increases. So those were all things in the last 5-year plan that were accomplished during that time. So when we look at this one, some of the key points that I see, if we look at the focus on every student, we know we need to have excellence in teaching and learning. Bottom line, if you've got a great teacher in a room, those kids are going to learn. Now we know that you have to have the right curriculum, and you got to have rigor, and you have to have all of those things. But the first thing you need to do is have an excellent teacher in there. What creates that excellent teacher? Well, you know, a lot of it is the relationships that they develop with kids. A lot of it is the training they get in college. A lot of it is being able to look at somebody who already is an excellent teacher and having a mentor. But there never has been a lot of formalized programs on some of the things that help develop. And I always relate things to those who don't know me. I'm a nurse. I relate a lot of it to my own career. You know, somebody can go through 4 years of college, come out with their bachelor's in nursing. They're not necessarily an excellent nurse when they first start out, but they can quickly get there. So a lot of the responsibility in this area, I think, relies on the school system, the administration, being able to offer truly exceptional professional development at all levels. And then opportunities to know what best practices are. Opportunities to have people out there who can role model opportunities to set up collaboration. 7, 8 years ago, when I first, when I was on the board, when you talked about collaboration, you had some that went on, but it tended to be grade level at the elementary thing or subject specific as you got older, and it tended to be building isolated. There never was the opportunity to say, if a teacher isn't there teaching class all the time, how do they get to do the other stuff? And if you've got an excellent teacher teaching a class, how do other teachers get to observe that? So I think that in this you'll see changes in commitments to offering opportunities to develop excellent teachers, as well as better, one thing we've heard clearly is the professional development opportunities for our staff haven't been meeting their needs. I've not been in any of the classes that have been happening at the, a couple of weeks ago, but I've heard a lot. I heard a lot about the principal start off, and I heard a lot about the classes that have occurred in the last 2 weeks because they have, it seems to me, been more staff-led. So what they've done is gone out and find who are the really good people at this. Let's let them teach the class. And I think that's a look at what probably will be happening.
Can I ask you, when you say words like best practices, what does that mean? In practice, what I'm experiencing, and I'm just a parent of students, is that it's a certain phrase that has to be used or a certain template that has to be gone through.
No, I don't mean that at all.
Okay.
I mean, I can tell you as a parent, when I either watched teachers by helping in a classroom, or honestly, when I would go to the orientations for my high schoolers, I could get a sense right away, who I just knew at least would connect with my kid. I think all teachers know, they all know that really exceptional teacher at whatever topic, but when they see it. So I don't know how to define it, but I do think when we do observe it, we need to showcase it. And everybody's not going to take the same approach. But I think there are concepts. Bluegrass is a school that I was talking to some teachers there at the end of the year last year, and they just kept telling me about their coach and some of the best practices that she came in and did in their class for certain specific things, and then they applied, and they just felt that changed how they got a concept across. So no, I'm not talking about scripting, standardization, or anything like that.
Okay.
And that's not my intent, and I don't believe it's the intent in there, because, again, what will work for my kid might not work for yours. And guys, just feel free to interrupt me at any time. Just some of the ideas you may hear in these things, though. At the elementary level, focus on reading and teaching reading. And it doesn't mean we're only going to teach reading and math, but that focus is going to be there, and it's going to be employed in all areas. I heard of, the teachers last year at some of the elementary schools, the PE teachers incorporating some of these basics of reading and math into their phys ed. There's going to be a program, and Elizabeth, I may get you to talk a little bit more about this, the Diploma +2. And my understanding of that right now, at least in concept, is we've got it in some cases. So the kids who go to Farragut's Academy, the Business Academy or the STEM Academy, they graduate with their Tennessee diploma, their Farragut High diploma, and they also have that focus in STEM but we're also looking at it in like portfolio showcasing for our art majors. What other areas?
Community service projects, perhaps.
It's more of an acknowledgement that being functional and being successful when you graduate is more than the books. The academic has to be there, but it's just looking at the whole child.
Karen, I like what you're saying, but it doesn't match what's in the plan that I've seen.
Well, I will tell you that there have been revisions And some of that is going to come out Thursday, Dr. McIntyre?
Yeah, so we actually are posting this evening some of the...
Was that and not the other one?
I'm
Diploma
sorry?
+2, was that
Yeah,
it?
Diploma plus 2, so it's in the performance indicators, and I think in the most recent revision we put some...
Oh, it's more clearly in the most recent
I
division.
think it will be. I sort of noticed that as well, but we didn't really spell that out as clearly as possible. As you said, though, the notion is you want to make sure that our kids graduate with a meaningful high school diploma, with a 21 or better on the ACT, and then something else, some other indicator of perseverance, resilience, leadership, development. And so, as you said, it might be community service, it might be a showcase in terms of an art project, it might be a capstone, it might be service or a leadership role in a club or a student organization. So just making sure that all of our kids have an opportunity to show not only their academic abilities and proficiencies, but also the other types of leadership and service and artistic values or those types of things as well.
So what you're going to hear, though, when you hear, well, that's not out there yet, this has been presented, developed over a year. It started with many 20-plus insight sessions out in the community to get input on kind of what's right, what's not, where do we need to go, and then worked on by a committee, brought to the board at different periods just for public discussion, brought to the board in a draft style last month at our workshop. A lot of input there. Also then put out again, requests, give us your thoughts, tell us what you think about things, what do you like, what do you not like, what would need to be changed. Open the website to, did you get much traffic? Input on that?
We had a number of messages and emails.
I put it out in email, I put it out on Facebook, I put it out on Twitter. When it first came out, I didn't get anything back. And that's kind of why I said, well, let's try to get together and talking about it. So this is developing as we go. I found that in this second draft, it was a little bit shorter, not a lot, but it was probably about 6, 7, 8 pages shorter.
Is the second draft is on the website as of today?
I think it's gone up tonight. Was it up today?
It's going up this evening.
Probably not up yet, but it's
All
going
right,
up.
so I have the first draft.
from today.
Oh, okay. Then maybe it is.
Yep.
So anyway, you'll see that on there. But Lance, talking about that Diploma +2, it's on page 9 when you do look at it, when you see the other copy. I don't want to spend too much time on my stuff. I will tell you some of the other key points, and I'm only telling the key things that I think. So if you've read something else you want to talk, bring it up. I'm just trying to think of what people will be concerned about. When we talk about personalized learning, and that's still in the focus on every student, everybody initially is going to think that's technology. Obviously, technology is a part of that. We did a challenge last year, and there were 11 schools that basically won this opportunity for a challenge to integrate at the high school and middle school one-to-one technology. At the elementary, it varies in different grade levels. If you have the time and you want to know just a sense, I will tell you probably one of the most interesting board meetings, not that they aren't all incredibly interesting, but that I attended recently was in February 18th. We had teachers, principals, students, parents come to us at the February 18th meeting, and they presented to us their experience at all those schools on the technology. What worked, what more so, they focused a lot on what was a positive for them. But what were the concerns? The students from West Valley did an incredible presentation on project-based learning. There was a coach, I think he was from South Soil, who talked about his initial reaction was, I signed on because our school couldn't get it if everybody didn't sign on, but he wasn't really into it, and it was clear. And his quest each day was, how am I going to use this every day? And he talked about how it had changed to, how could I not use this? And how I use this to help do what I want to do. So it is on, the video of their presentation is on February 18th. You could watch the whole board meeting, but if you start at 44-minute mark, you can just see the student and teacher presentation. But, you know, personalized learning also talks about individualizing that learning for all kids, too. So it talks about how do we schedule things. And one of the things that I think is in this one that we're going to hear about is questions about block scheduling at the high school level. You know, so I know that in my district, we still use it pretty heavily. Other areas in Knox County have changed over the years, and they have traditional scheduling, and they have a hybrid of scheduling.
I would hate to see you leave block scheduling.
I would too, but I will say that there is some pretty compelling looking at just data.
I think you should have that option for, because if a kid is well advanced, like a STEM kid, he can double up on math, he can double up on science. I understand for the kid that needs full year math, he should have that option. But it really works for the kid that can tap into something and learn quickly.
Yeah. My kids loved it. They loved only having 4 classes so that they could balance their hards and their easiers as far as just work production, things like that. That will be a discussion. And the other thing I didn't point out in this, even as the board passes a strategic plan, that doesn't pass everything in the strategic plan. All these things that have tremendous impact all get their own discussion and vote, and they get adapted as we go along. So I don't foresee a change to block scheduling coming without having discussions about it. Pros, cons, and how do you meet everybody's needs. You know, when you talk about individualized learning, you talk about, do we have to look at some online classes? You know, when they get to college, they're expected to do this.
Yep. But Karen, when you also talk about personalized learning, aren't you also talking about those kids who excel at the arts, music, band, art, theater, drama? Nowhere in this plan does it mention anything about keeping those things or enhancing those things.
Well, I don't think it's...
And this, the way I understood it, the purpose of this session was for input from the community as to what needs to be changed about this plan to make it better. We all want the same thing, right?
Well, the purpose of this community is to inform them of what's being discussed and to get their input, whether...
Well, the email said it was for input from us.
Can I finish? Their input is maybe what needs to be changed or what they like about it, because they may actually like something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Something that needs to be changed is nowhere in here does there any mention of increasing the art or even keeping the arts, keeping PE, keeping all those non-traditional courses. Some specific suggestions would be to change, continue to provide multiple pathways to success. I mean, that's meaningless. What I in this group of parents and students and educators would recommend is provide a strength-based curriculum model that offers pathways for all children in arts, physical education, music, history, civics, foreign language, literature, mathematics, and sciences. I mean, we need something hard that says we're committed to these things, and this plan doesn't have that.
And I think I'm glad that you all have that in writing. I have no doubt that it will be distributed to us at some point so that we can consider it. I would suggest the sooner the better. And
It's
that's
been
what
distributed today.
I've not gotten anything.
Well, you just have to go online and look for it.
Well, I did, and I couldn't find anything. But
Here, you want this copy?
Well, I'll go online if you just tell me where. But
I'll just give this to you.
I
I passed them out, and you made it clear you didn't want one, but here you go.
Well, I don't think I did, but anyway, this is
There you
not
go.
going to be our battle here. I think that can be a consideration. I will also add, though, my belief, and particularly when you do anything, when you write policy, if you try to write everything in, you skip one thing and then it automatically, well, you included everything but this. So I tend to err on broader rather than every subject, but you know, that's my opinion, and I'm one of 9 on there.
The but now what you said about the plan and that everything's got to be vetted.
Everything's going to be what?
Reviewed when it comes to implementation.
Not everything. I mean, I don't know that every sentence is going to be reviewed.
No, I didn't mean the plan.
Big components, yeah.
But each component, you're going to consider it in a year or 2 or 5 or whatever. But, so I'm confused about what it is we should, when we read the plan, what is it really telling us? If this isn't really the plan, or is it the plan, if we're going to do it later, but then maybe you can speak to my confusion.
Well, again, I don't think that every decision will be reviewed and voted on by the board. I think those big components that have impact on teachers, community, things like that will be. I think that when we talk about scheduling, I can't imagine changing high school schedules without A, having teacher input, B, having student input, and C, having just family and community. But I don't necessarily know, and you do have to talk to just general community members, work schedules are affected and things like that. So I see those big components, kind of like the ones I'm touching on right now, that I would expect further discussion. Now, not everything that changes in a administration of a school is a board vote. A board votes on policy. A board votes on budget. Those things that have any direct impact on budget, we'll be voting on. If it's going to cost us more, we'll be voting on. A lot of times it's information that comes to us on the mid-month work sessions. And so that's where, even if a board's not voting on it, the community gets a chance to hear about it and give feedback. There are times that it's going to be something that is voted on, the community can hear in a mid-month, and then the vote takes place 2 weeks later or a month later. But I don't want to have you think everything in here is going to be voted on later.
Yeah, I guess one would like to be able to read it and say, okay, these are the things that we made the decision when we approved this plan, and they're going to go without further review. These are the things that we're going to come back to, because frankly, reading it, and I've read it, it's not at all clear. A lot of the stuff is very nebulous and wonderful sounding, but it's not at all clear what it means in practice.
Well, and I think, though, because I don't know that, when we're teaching a kid who is a freshman in high school right now and preparing them for their career, and they're going to go to college, what we're teaching them may not, the career they choose may not even exist today, even in that short of a time frame. So to try to spell out in black and white exactly what we're going to do, you can't. How do I know where we're going to be digitally in 5 years? I have no idea. I mean, if you had told me what I would do with my phone 6 years ago, I would have said you were crazy. So, it's very hard to say, but then the alternative is, okay, well, we won't have a plan. And that's my point of the plan. The plan makes you aspire to something. Do you have all the black and white steps? No, it would be a 400-page plan, which means it would sit on the shelf and not do anything. So I don't know how to spell it all out and be honest about it.
Can I ask you a question? In the section, I guess goal 1, differentiating instruction to meet students' learning needs. I have 1 point and 1 question.
Okay.
My point is, this past year, my son was in algebra. The teacher was struggling. She could see the kids were struggling with a topic they had learned the previous year. She was instructed by her coach that she could not review that material because of Common Core. That's not serving students' needs. She decided after a week of watching that confusion, she said, that's it, I'm reviewing it. She reviewed it, the kids got on board, they understood what was going on, and she moved on with her class.
All right. I can say that I didn't read that in here anywhere.
I understand that.
Let me turn to our principal. Do you mind if I put you on the spot?
Oh, no
Renee
worries.
Kelly is the principal at West Valley Middle. So is that practice?
Well, first of all, that's not Common Core. That was just inappropriate feedback.
Okay.
I mean, maybe you want me to say something profound. I don't know where it happened. I don't know.
It happened in Hardin Valley, so you would think that she would, the teacher was, she told me this, and I'm looking at her like, are you kidding me? You are not serving my kids' needs, and she knew she wasn't. As a parent, that upsets me. An entire week went through in block scheduling. A week is a month.
Yeah.
And it was a waste of time that she was encouraged not to do that. But moving on from that, that is something
Well, let me
that...
just say one thing to that, and it's more in our invest in people. But I think with the tremendous changes that have come down the line, whether internally or externally, it has been overwhelming. And I think because it's overwhelming, the implementation is good in some parts, really not good in other parts. There were ideas that were tried. Apex is one of the things I talked about as being one of the things that we did based on the last plan. You'll see in this plan, we're looking at something different, because when you look at it, you say, didn't really work.
Well, that leads me to my second question. You talk about great teachers have always provided excellent instruction that is responsive to and tailored around the individual needs, learning styles, personalities, blah, blah, blah. You have kids in a classroom, and the teacher's teaching his or her lesson, and all of a sudden the kids get centered on this one thing that just sparks them. With a 61-point rubric, the teacher can't address that. Are you guys thinking of getting rid of that?
I will tell you this, I've heard all about the 61-point rubric. There is a rubric that has, how many, Elizabeth, major categories? 6?
I think on the instructional rubric it's like 11 or 12.
Okay. And then under them are little bullet points. They have consistently said the purpose of a 61-point rubric is not to hit all 61 points in a class.
Okay.
Now, so again, go back to invest in our people. If that's not how it's being employed, then that needs to change. But the intent here and the action here, there's a delta that's got to be fixed. But I have never heard anybody who starts off the professional development of how to use this rubric say, when you go in there and evaluate a teacher, if they don't hit all 61, there's deficit. I have heard many teachers say, if they didn't hit all 61, they're a deficit. So there is a difference in there, so that has to be addressed. So do you fix the tool? We talk about in here, there's a statement, and it was one that I focused on a lot, and we've changed it some. But basically, it's instead of, making sure everybody understands that the tool is developmental, let's make sure the tool is developmental. So that would be an area I would expect to see changes over. But I also am not going to just accept that the expectation is that they would follow a 61.
I just want to say, teachers strive to be a 5. And so in that striving to be a 5, we want to hit as much as we can, because none of us want to be a 3. We want to be a 5. And that's just the reality. That's where we want to be.
And I think that's fine, but I will also say, I don't think the expectation is you can only be a 5 if you hit 61 points in every classroom. That's not what I've heard, at least in this is how it should be done. Now again, you've got a huge system. You've got 90 schools. You've got 4,000 employed teachers, and they're going to get evaluated. And I would expect, and I think every year the evaluations, the quality of them have improved, not the results, but I will say I have talked to many, many teachers. If we could put the grading aside, who believe the evaluation process that goes on now gives them much more meaningful feedback.
Have you talked to a lot of the teachers that are retiring? Because I'm watching in Farragut Middle Schools, where my kid is right now. I have older kids that have gone through, and I'm hoping that my youngest is going to get these teachers, and they're leaving. And it's very sad to me, because they were good, effective teachers. Teaching language arts and reading is not very romantic. Diagramming sentences is not a fun thing, although that's left the curriculum as far as I can tell. My kids learned stuff from them because they were good at how they delivered that information. And now they've left. Have you talked to them to see why they've left the system?
I have talked to some more than the ones that I knew, and I've gotten mixed things. I think the job has changed. And I think there's no denying that the job has changed. Although
Yes,
I
but
look,
writing a sentence
but
is
I
still
will
writing
say,
a
yeah,
sentence.
I agree. And reading a book is still reading a book, and you know, all of those things still exist. But the application when you get out in the world is very different. It is. And the level of commitment from family that existed 10 years ago, 15 years ago, doesn't exist as much. You know, it just doesn't. I mean, I see it in my world in the hospital all the time. I see parents with Bluetooth on and in the screen. I see kids in the screen. I see kids who are 3. There's no vocabulary going back and forth. So the development level that they come in is very different. I see Farragut Middle School, where a child does something wrong that 10 years ago, he had to deal with it at school and deal with it at home, and I see a very different culture nowadays. So there is no doubt that the job has changed. I think you still want to keep and value excellent teachers. But I also will say, the job has changed, and there are some that I've talked to who said, I just don't want to do that job. I don't blame them. You know, and some of those parts aren't going to change. It doesn't mean you wash your hands of it. And I think there is talk, and there are goals in this plan that say, you know, we want to keep, I think it's 90%. When you look at retention, I mean, it's setting some real numbers. We want to keep 90% of our excellent teachers. Now, I've got questions on that.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Karen, the job hasn't changed. Teaching is still teaching. What's changed is all these conditions and requirements that teachers are now required to do. The job of teaching has not changed.
I think she was talking more or less about the home environment too, though, right?
I think that's a big factor in it.
Yeah, but still, the teachers are in the classroom teaching. That's not changed.
I think I assume that the teachers are in the classroom teaching, but I do think the job has changed.
Ms. Carson, is there any chance, yes, I believe the job has changed. For instance, I'm going to have to go back next week and teach a bunch of teachers how to use a new piece of technology, and I'm going to have to do that in about 2 hours, where in the business world they would spend 2 weeks on it.
Right.
And so the teachers will be spending their own time trying to learn the rest of this, and they still won't be able to get it all because there's so many other demands. Is there any thought of increasing the teachers, instead of being on a 200-day contract, being on a 210-day contract, so that there's time in there for that, because we've increased the principal's contracts twice now. And, you know, I'll be honest, I've been both an administrator and a teacher, and there's no tougher job, and I said this when I was an administrator, than a teacher. Mm-hmm. You spend much more than 200 days,
absolutely,
you know, working on that. But I don't ever hear any talk about the possibility of, you know, since our time has grown, what's demanded of teachers has increased exponentially, and yet our contract hasn't. Mm-hmm. Our day, you know, the days are. So I just wondered if there's any talk of looking at that.
I think there's talk, and I think what's always our big roadblock is dollars. And so the reason I say I think there's talk of looking at that is in our schools that really, really struggle, we've done that. Mm-hmm. So there's a foundational understanding of we got to give them more time, and it's not like we've given them more time. You know, when we reconstituted. You know, when you look at Fulton and Austin East, I think Vine, you know, we upped the teacher contract days for professional development. Do I think every school could use that? Absolutely. Do I think we can afford to do it financially? You know, the break even comes when you can no longer, if you can't afford to do it financially, can you afford the loss of what you don't get because of it? You know, and I don't know that we're at that point yet. But yes, I mean, do I think we're adequately funded to do that right now? No, I do not. Do I think we should be? Yes, I do. As honest as I can be. But I mean, the concept that you talk about, I think I can demonstrate that there is a understanding and belief in, because we've employed it at our most struggling schools. It's not just the administrators that went on extended things, it's all of our teachers. Let me go real quick just over the other 2 areas, or just pick out if there's some key points that I just want to make sure you're aware of, and then I will talk about whichever ones you guys want. On the community one, I think as you read through it, It's pretty self-explanatory, although one thing that I will say that's in there that it may be hard for people to grasp the importance of, and it's more of the customer service aspect. We know that to engage our community, we have to engage our students, our parents, our staff and faculty, and our community. So when we're talking about customer relations, you know, it's being responsive to concerns, whether they be maintenance concerns, and addressing those, technology concerns. You know, if you're going to expand technology, it's got to have that coach in the school. I mean, it's pretty clear in the 11 schools that we've done it, that is one of the key components that makes it successful, is that you have that TPAC coach there to troubleshoot, teach, you know, exchange all the equipment and things like that. Employee concerns, we've got to be responsive to them. And so it involves setting up feedback loops of communication where people can be held accountable, but it also involves development and training of all staff on, you know, how to respond appropriately. And, you know, I think a lot of people when they hear customer service or service excellence or guest relations, you think of the front office staff.
Amen.
And it's so much deeper than that. You know, I find as an organization, every individual I've come into in Knox County schools at whatever level truly cares about kids and just really have a heart for doing what's right. But I find that they're not very good at just speaking the blunt truth. So if we can't do something, we tend to dance around it rather than say, we can't do that, and give a reason why, or go find out what can happen. I find that in talking to a lot of teachers, they really do go to their principal and say, you know, I have a problem with this. And the easy answer they get back is, well, that's what administration says we have to do, or that's what central office says we have to do, or I agree with you, but. Well, if we don't allow our principals to administer the buildings, we're never going to be successful. And I firmly believe that there are significant changes that could occur if we just responded to a concern and addressed it as if it were every concern is a valid concern. Doesn't mean that every answer is going to be the answer somebody wants, but it's not going to be a non-answer like, I can't do that. Or, you know, I think everybody has a right to know, if not, why. You know, and that there's always limits to the whys, but at just a fundamental level, you know, if a parent has a concern, they have a right to talk to somebody who knows their child and is involved in that. And I will tell you that there are always people who go much further than that. There are always parents who go much further than that. But it's got to start there. So you will hear probably some things in the media about, you know, public forums, or me or the board trying to censor people. Not at all. I want every citizen to be able to speak in public forum, but I want it addressed first at the most appropriate level. And I don't mean that just for teachers. I mean that for parents. I don't want a parent who had a problem with their teacher coming to the board first when that teacher or principal didn't have a chance to talk about it. You know, and there are some people that can try to go, and I don't want anybody jumping through 10 levels of hoops. But I want that initial contact to happen, and I want to go back. If it didn't get an appropriate response, I want to go back and have somebody in administration be able to go to that principal and say, what did you do with this? What could you have done? What should we do? So I don't foresee the board getting rid of public forum. I see it continuing in their community engagement to try to bring people in. But I do foresee us trying to get word out at the school level first. And it's kind of like...
Karen, can I say something? As a parent, I cruise along, I watch I didn't really start paying attention. I realized so many teachers were coming to the Board of Education meeting. That sent out alarm bells, and something's up, something's wrong, something people are upset about.
Right.
If teachers aren't coming to the Board of Education meeting to let us know what's going on, we as parents don't know, because they aren't going to tell us in the classroom, well, this is what's going on in my classroom, and I'm really angry about it. They're not going to do that. They know that's not professional, but they need an outlet somewhere. And I would not have known what was going on had I not heard what was going on at the meeting. So I'm not sure that I agree with you. Maybe, yeah, go to the principal and this is what's going on, but I'm taking it, I'm voicing it, because we need that light. Because the sooner, as loud as that got, it got some response from you guys to get together and start thinking, okay, this is the bad side of what we've done. This is, we had this vision, and this has gone off the rails, and you have to address it, which I'm hoping that as a group you are addressing it. Our children suffer when the teachers are unhappy.
I agree.
I don't want to see that.
So let me propose the counter to you, because if you go back, and I have gone back and listened to all of those again, but if you go back and you listen to the November, December ones, count how many teachers started with, I haven't said anything for 5 years, but I haven't said anything for 3 years, but if we had a system that was responsive, our kids wouldn't have had to deal with that. Our teachers wouldn't have had to get to the boiling point. That's what generated in me. I think what happened in November, December needed to happen. I think, I frankly was incredibly engaged at that point, because what it said to me loud and clear is, we don't have a system in place to respond appropriately to our employees' concerns. And our employees don't feel like they can voice their concerns until they get to the point where it's just overflowing. So I would counter that with, if we would respond, and if we can set a culture where there is communication back and forth and a freedom to say, this is my area of expertise. Let me show you what this is doing to my kids and what I think might be better. And then you have your academic leaders in your building who take that seriously.
Well, I think that is the key, is will you have that taken seriously? Was there some part of the fact that so many teachers showed up and they were so angry that there's public pressure that kind of came to bear on you to make a change that may not have occurred if they were just kind of, you were hearing dribs and drabs and
Well, I think if we only hear dribs and drabs, you're right, we won't. But I also think that there are many of those issues that could have and should have been addressed much more appropriately in a system that is responsive to its employees. And so when I talk about service excellence, that's the responsiveness.
All right, this is my question then. How, as a parent, do I know that that's what's happening?
Well, I think you'll see it come out, it'll come out again. If we get our principals to agree that this is their job, and that's an administrative responsibility that at least I, as a board member, feel very strongly has to happen, and a teacher does it, and they're still frustrated. Now, it doesn't mean they didn't, I think sometimes there's a difference between did you get what you want?
I understand
or
what
did
you're
you get a valid
saying.
answer?
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
So, I think if they do that and they don't get a response, or the principal says, I can't do anything about it, I give them free rein. Come to the board and say it again. But then at least I can go back and see. And I believe, honestly, the example was the Sat 10s that I heard from a teacher. She says, I told her my concerns about it. And she said, you know what, I agree with you, but we can't do anything. I believe if she had written that down and gotten a written response, that principal would not have written that. I may be wrong. But if the principal does write that, then it gives this word an opportunity to say, where's the breakdown? Because if you as a principal agree that something's not right for a student and a teacher agrees it's not right, you don't just quit there.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just saying, if you look at a 5-year plan, I think when I look at an organization and how it runs, there's a lot of things that run really smoothly, and a lot of things that are done that are excellent in our school system. But I also think when I say teaching has changed, how you run a school has changed. And with social media, with all kind of stuff, this school has to respond to that. And if you don't, if you want to run it like you always did, where I'm the boss and this is what it's going to be, it's not going to work.
I hear what you're saying about if that had been in writing, and then, because I know a lot of principals in elementary schools who have issues with the SAT 10. But it's hard to, after reading the strategic plan, it's hard to believe that we are listened to, because it was very clear in the teacher survey that we felt like the PLCs were, having them weekly was not only not necessary, but not conducive to the best things for our students. And also that the coaches pulling out, I'll be honest, a coach would have so much more validity for me if she had her own classroom. But when she has 8 hours to plan a lesson, you better believe it's a great lesson. I don't have that luxury. As I'm teaching everything. I think it would be great if we had maybe a floater in each school who could come and cover my class while I went and watched a coach. And yet we still have a plethora of coaches, and we still have PLCs down for weekly. It was sort of sounded like, oh, we heard what she said about PLCs, but it's just because you all don't know how to do them.
I didn't see PLCs weekly in the plan. I saw it focused on PLCs,
And they come in.
but I didn't see
They
weekly.
meet,
Well, I
the
guess that's-
teachers
I'm just
in
getting
a
that
grade
from
meet,
our
or teachers in the
Okay.
subject
All right,
area meet
and so,
once a week.
as things
Once a week.
come out,
It's a waste of
because
time.
what's in the plan doesn't mean it's changing tomorrow.
They meet once a week? They meet once a week?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
See, they're different everywhere, and that's what people don't understand. So you guys, when I hear people talk about coaches, I have 50 emails in less than 12 hours that I received from teachers.
You know what I'm saying?
Testimony
I'd rather have the other
to
program.
the value of their coach in their school. So what it tells me is, at some schools, these coaches are invaluable to student learning. At other schools, it's not hitting the mark for what they need. It doesn't mean that the coaching is bad. It's kind of like budget decisions. When you have to make a cut, do you cut coaches?
Why does the teacher have to do coach?
Well, I think my job as a board member is to think a step deeper. So let's say we
Especially
have
if you're
50.
evaluating that teacher, like
Just
the way
pick a
they
number.
evaluate their
50
teachers.
FTEs.
She must be good
Do I
because
cut
she's still
50
working.
FTEs that are serving as coaches right now and never get those FTEs back? Or do I keep them and
Full-time
look at
employee.
how a coach functions?
I've worked for
And
the
maybe in
government.
2 years we say coaches don't work and
It's
we're going to
just
have those teachers
FTE,
double up in the
full-time
classroom.
employee.
You still got the
Coaches, full-time
FTE.
employee.
So, sometimes the response people see right away isn't
So
what
just to the teachers.
they wanted. But I also think one thing that the teacher advisory committee has done is at least allow those teachers in that group to realize
Don't they have a
that
basic curriculum
practices
they have
that
to
they're
fill?
adamant are not good. There's somebody even in that group of 10 or 11 who's sitting right next to them saying, wait a minute, in my school we don't want to give that up. And it's a huge system, and things work some places and don't work some places. But for everybody who could tell me about the coaches not being helpful, I can give you somebody who told me, don't take my coach away.
But when you have a survey that shows you 70%, that, the survey was very quantitative and very much numbers driven, which seems to be what we like around here. And then it just seems to get, I don't want to say ignored, but it very much feels like we're not being listened to when the numbers show out that this is how the teachers feel about it. Whether we've gotten, someone to, email you personally to say, to say things, it seems like we listen to numbers when it's conducive to what is wanted, and when it's not conducive to what is wanted, we take anecdotal evidence.
But in speaking to that, because as one who's seen coaching done well and appreciates that coaching can be really effective, I also have friends who are coaches who send out emails to all their teachers asking them to email the board members to tell them how much they like their coaches. So, but
Sure
I'm not
they
against
did.
coaching because I've seen it done well.
But they did that because they felt that the position was threatened, and I don't think teachers would email and lie just to do that. I guess I don't. I guess what I would say to you is if you want to look at specifics in a plan and pick something that is not what you thought it might be based on feedback, you'll always be able to find something. But if you want to look at a whole plan, this is how are we going to do something, I think there have been things that have been very responsive. You know, I think it's very clear in there that we're going to look at testing, and that there's going to be a hard look at what's appropriate, what's not, what has to be done, what doesn't have to be done, what takes too much time, what gives us better student outcomes, and what doesn't. And I think, I don't know if there's any family members here, but I can tell you as a mom, you know, anything I can do to get away from all these practice tests, I'm all for it to be gone, you know. But I think parent perspectives and student perspectives and teacher perspectives are very different. So, you know, when I talk about is there everything? No. But I think there are things that very much have looked at feedback and said, we need to do better in these areas.
Do you ever look at, when kids go through school, they take TCAPs at the end of April. So basically their school year is crammed into the end of April, and then May is la-la land.
Pretty much.
Is there any way you're ever going to address bringing those tests to closer to the end of the school year so that the teachers and the students get a full year to learn the material instead of having it crammed in a shortened, it's basically a shortened school year?
Where I understand that states, because we don't set our own dates for TCAPs.
I understand that.
And I know that our board pushed a number of years ago to say, make it later, because it was even earlier than it is now. They did move it back a little. But the legislation also passed a law that it would be a part of a student's grade. So supposedly you're going to get your results back in time to do that. It happened one year, it didn't happen one year, and it didn't even come close this year.
Yeah.
So,
So what is the issue about not getting, aren't they scanned? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Are you just putting 30,000 things through a scanner and the scanner's not fast enough?
I have no idea. I mean, we got an email from
Is it
Commissioner.
not?
The data.
We got an email from Commissioner Huffman, but I can't say that the board. I can't tell you that
I'm thinking buying a
explain it.
scanner.
I will tell
Or
you
hand
that
grade them. I can guarantee we can hand grade them a lot faster.
and I can tell you, you know, it's like one of those things. I can tell you probably every board member and every administrator was as frustrated as every teacher and every parent was with that. We got a reply. I don't even know that I read it thoroughly because I don't know that there's a good answer for why not. I mean, I don't know that I had one in my head that I thought would be acceptable. So.
I know, but that seems like a logical question to ask is why does it take so long to grade?
We did, and I think it's probably posted somewhere, but I don't know that it gives you a real answer.
I guess I just kind of think of, okay, when she was talking about, and both of you talking about how, you know, in some places like the switching works, and in some places it doesn't work. So what are we going to do to make it work for everybody? It's true, what works in my school may not work in your school. Is there some way we can find out what works where? Or thinking about the TCAP stuff, okay, just as we are bringing issues up to you, and a lot of us are pretty vocal about it, we depend on you also to voice our concerns to those who are at a higher level. So whether it's, superintendents getting together to talk to the Commissioner of Education, whether it's school board members to talk to the State Board of Education, again, we know that there's that hierarchy and that chain of command, but sometimes I feel like if it gets that dismissed, like, well, there's nothing we can do about it, it's done.
Right.
So, and nothing gets solved and nothing gets fixed, and we just continue on with the status quo. So what are the next steps? I guess the question is, what can we do about it?
I think that there are things that we can do, but it's to remember that, like, you think there's you would think, just by title, there's a natural relationship between a school board and the State Board of Education. There's absolutely zero relationship. But a lot of these changes occur through law, and so, I think Gloria, as a state representative, can talk about the frustrations of trying to do that. But the only way I think it's going to change is if people become engaged and vocal and active and together. And I also think you need to pick the battles, because if we try to attack the whole thing, you get nowhere. But if we try to attack the very specific thing, you know, do you have a chance? I don't know if you want to, I don't, again, just, you
Yeah.
got more experience.
Let
but
us know, show up on the Hill, you know, all of that stuff is very important. There's been some bad legislation over the last few years, and hopefully we can tick away at changing that. At least there's a much better audience of folks listening up there, and, but, you know, we need our school boards and our superintendents advocating for all those things as
That's what I
well.
was looking for, how, you know, like I said, we elect you
To be our advocate.
represent our concerns, our needs for.
And I will tell you that in our delegation, because our board every year does come up with a list of, I want to say,
Legislative agenda.
yeah, our legislative agenda, you know, and we meet with all of our delegates. And I would say on almost every issue on our legislative agenda, we get maybe 20% of our legislators to agree with us. If we get Joe Armstrong and Gloria to agree with us.
I agree with that.
Barry Brooks.
I guess that
Barry Brooks will agree with
things that we need to be voting on.
that somehow, even though we know it's not always going to happen.
Yeah.
Politics.
Well, it's not that those things
But
aren't
we-
happening,
yeah,
but it
I-
has to happen on a bigger level. I mean, I can go talk to a whole delegation, but I will tell you that they are very aware of if you're a voting member in their district or not.
And teachers' voices are huge.
They are.
Legislators, and they're getting huger, I'm telling you.
Students' voices
You
are
have a say, and they will listen to you. And the more vocal, the better, I promise. Because they're really, really listening. Teachers are a huge voting base, but what? Because attached to teachers, there's the family, there's people they have taught, and it's important, and it really can be a big voice.
But I think there has to be some working together to really identify the issues and more strategy in how to approach them, because it's very easy to blow them all off when it's too much. And unfortunately, they did too much 3 years ago at one time, and we're still having huge repercussions from that. But we can't fix that too much in one swipe. It's just not going to work.
And those conversations are happening as well. And I think people need to know that, and probably we need to do a better job of letting people know that. And the board does, the board is taking a leadership role in a number of different areas and resolutions, and encouraged other boards around the state to take some positions and things like that. I have, the opportunity to talk to Commissioner Hoffman fairly frequently. I try to represent the needs of our school district, of our kids, of our teachers, of our parents, and our families. That doesn't always lead to a different outcome, but it's good to be able to have those conversations. And we're also fortunate to have, in a lot of ways, the ear of our governor. So those conversations are occurring. They're not always entirely persuasive or successful, but it is important for people to know that we are trying to make sure that voice is heard and that perspective is heard.
And I think it's kind of like hearing about, the plan and PLCs, and therefore you're not hearing us. You have to look for what was heard too. So even things like, because there are times I'm like, really, you think the governor's listening to us? And yet I know last week, the week before, he and Commissioner Huffman went across the state and met with certain teachers and principals just to get feedback. And I know one of the things that they heard during that, obviously, was, and I'm not sure what county it was, but some board members heard about it, and they kind of protested outside. Well, today we get a letter through our school board organization from the governor saying, I will be meeting with school board members too. This is what our purpose was there. So does it satisfy it? Does it make it all right? No. But it does tell me he heard that, and he knows that needs to be addressed, and I think that happens at all levels. Dr. McIntyre, since you're here and people are here, I think today the press release went out about a joint meeting with superintendents. Can you just let us know a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So we're going to talk tomorrow. The state is releasing district-specific outcomes for TCAP scores and of course exams results, and district determinations, accountability determinations, so what status of districts will be in things of that nature based on the accountability. And here in East Tennessee, my colleagues and I have decided to try to come together and jointly sort of talk about where we are. And I think one of the, certainly one of the topics will be, and I'll try to, I guess, touch this in terms of my perspective on it. First, that we believe, and I think this is characteristic of most of the superintendents, we believe that Common Core state standards is the right place to be, and it's the right level of rigor for our kids to prepare them for the right successful future. But we're in a place right now where our kids are taking an assessment that wasn't designed to measure. And that there's a, that leads to some uncertainty around, how to interpret the results that we're seeing and things like that. And I think it leads to some uncertainty and anxiety among our teachers and our educators around the accountability systems that we have in place. And I think the bottom line message, I think, for the superintendents tomorrow will be, we really need to move to having an aligned assessment as quickly as we possibly can. That the decision to put off PARC assessment, really add to some of that uncertainty and anxiety rather than be a solution to it. And so we need to move quickly to that. So I think that's, and then of course.
Do you know how many are coming, or from what area? Or is it kind of
probably
still?
somewhere between 8 and 12 from all around.
And I'm not aware of that happening in the past, that you guys have gotten together and publicly made any statements.
No, we really haven't. Around these kinds of announcements, we did a joint press conference about 18 months ago around Common Core state standards, but we have not. And again, I think what we know and understand and see is that our teachers are doing a great job, and the instruction that we're seeing in the classroom is really quite good and quite strong, and I believe quite effective, and that our kids are learning. And what that means in terms of how we're assessing students, and if the current instrument that we're using is fully aligned to that, I think that's one of the challenges of where we are in this moment right now.
Why do we have to use PARC to?
We don't. I mean, you didn't.
We don't. And PARC isn't. I mean, we're probably not going to use PARC. But having an aligned assessment,
right.
That actually measures what we're teaching.
So you can teach to the test. I'm all about that. Trust me. Because my own family.
Necessary for us to really be able to measure learning for our kids in a way that we can feel good about and confident about, and continue to really move forward in improving quality of instruction and improving the student learning and success.
Well, and improving the validity of
PARC is just an aligned assessment. PARC is an aligned assessment. It's not necessarily the answer.
But I think your question is, why does it have to be PARC? And I think, that's the question in all of these things. I've done some looking at Sat 10s, and I've done a lot of talking about it. And I think I keep hearing, this isn't developmentally appropriate. Well, these are the guys who know that. And if it's not, when I talked to Dr. McIntyre, I asked him once, probably about a month ago, I said, are you wedded? Why are you wedded to Sat 10? Well, I'm not, but it's, research, da-da-da-da. I said, so what is it you really want? I want some form of valid assessment before kids get to third grade to find out that they're not reading at grade level. And so often we focus on these hard places that are at opposite points instead of finding what is just the root that we all want. And if we work from the root we all want, and it sounds like, I'm in this utopia. I'm sure as heck not living it, I can tell you that. But I do believe that when we try to find out what our common ground is and what we want, we can find many more solutions from that.
Well, and I think the parents of kindergarten through second graders also want to know what their kids are doing. They don't want them sitting through a standardized test to do it.
Or what would be an appropriate test.
Yeah.
There's got to be, but the key is we know that we can't wait to third grade, and we know that teachers know which kids aren't there, but there's no way of getting an overall look of knowing, 45% of our kids can't read at third grade level.
So what are we
That's
doing
not
wrong?
good.
My concern with all of this, the assessments and the data collection, is how in-depth that data collection gets on our own children and who has access to it and how does it follow them. These are concerns that in this day and age, and with the things you hear in the IRS and the NSA, it's not foolish to believe that if you have that much information tied to your kid, that it can't be found out when they're an adult. And what originally started as, let's make sure that our kids, we're doing right by our K through 2 kids so that when they're getting into third grade, they're doing okay, and having a system that follows them through their life.
Yeah, and you know, that we've got that same dilemma in healthcare, you know, in insurances and all kind of things. I don't know the answers, but I think there will be answers to address those things, and I think that they've started to address it at the state level, trying to say this is how we can put some parameters on it. I will tell you, I think as technology advances, those parameters are going to change.
They're already pretty stringent on federal laws.
Yeah. But there are always two loopholes, and you know, and so I think those are the things we identify as we go along.
It's going back to the plan, and this is maybe a small thing in some people's minds, and maybe nobody else even thinks about it, but maybe to me it's huge, and it's how the perception, it's how teachers feel. But when you talk about customer service, when you change human resources to human capital, and then you have things in it, we're not doing customer service. We're not. You don't run a school like a business. A business's bottom line is profit, and a school's bottom line is people and an educated child. And I think we should talk about a commitment to community service. But I think when you put these things in terms of business, it's perpetuating this untruth, and we're making kids more like data points, and where teachers are human capital. We're people. We're doing a very important job. And this idea that we've got to lean toward this widget-producing talk, to me, is just not, it's just in how it's perceived, and it may be small and nobody else may care, but when I think about someone calling me human capital, when I think about saying that this family whose child that I'm teaching, I'm doing customer service.
So I guess what I would say to you is two things. I think we heard loud and clear in November how offensive teachers found the term human capital, though it's a legitimate.
Everybody uses it.
Okay. But I would also say you haven't heard that term mentioned by that superintendent, anybody in his staff, or board members since then. The only time I've heard it is in public forum, where teachers have mentioned it again, and I think it's time to let that go. Message sent, message received, message acted on. Now, customer service, I don't know that I think community service describes it, and I know the board really debated last retreat, because I'm not just thinking about to the child, I'm talking about I'm talking about, the teacher who puts in a maintenance request. I'm talking about, the postman who comes in. I'm talking about the parent who asks a question about putting a book in the library and gets, well, we really can't do that, as opposed to, this is why. Because when we put that one in, we have to open the door to all these other things, too. And so this is our decision. So I don't know that community service, I believe, has a different community service. Generally, when I talk to a lot of people, they see that as, we're going to go out and
build a
house.
Threw that in, but
the question is, what is a better term? Because we really have struggled.
I'll think of one if you'd like. But,
we've talked about service excellence. We've talked about community relations. We've talked about all of those, but I don't know what term. Sometimes
stakeholder experience.
Stakeholder experience. What the heck is that? I didn't like that one. The bottom line is, there may be sometimes a business term really does describe it best and isn't offensive, and there may be times that it is offensive, and I think we have tried to really hear when it's offensive and not do that.
I liked her point. You know, kids are like adults. They have their strengths and their weaknesses. To expect that a kid is going to come out, it's like that well-rounded, you know, in theory that's a great idea. But if you got a math kid who isn't all that great at imaginative writing, he might be a proficient technical writer. He can describe stuff. He can write a good sentence. That's all you can ask of that kid. You're not going to have a novelist who is a STEM kid, who is a great artist. And making the most of having that child get through and making the most of what he has to offer is all we can ask for. And when we start doing these, it's frustrating as a parent to watch the expectations or that you think a kid is going to be great at everything. He's not.
I don't know that I can say, though, anywhere that I see that expectation. I think there is a perception of that.
There is a perception because my daughter we didn't get our ESC. We got our ESC grades, and Kate made a 66 on her ESC, and we were surprised by that because we had been doing Study Island for nights and nights and nights, and we've been doing stuff at home, and we thought she was doing great, and she's always had trouble in her honors. Language arts class in Bearden Middle School with this puff. And so she had a really hard time all year. And then she got the 66 on her ESE, which was a part of her grade. So now she's crushed because she got this 66 on this thing that we thought was going to raise her grade. And so, you know, we were like that. So the first thing I did was, you know, I called Miss Puff and said, hey, I want to take a look at this EOC. I want to see, you know, what she missed on this 66. I want to see the questions that she missed. I want to know what I'm going to be spending my money for a tutor on all summer because we're going to be doing that. And I want to make sure that we're studying the right things because I want to know what she missed. Well, we can't look at this. We're not allowed to look at the ESC
that is
test.
Another
You're
thing
not
that's
allowed.
wrong.
You're not allowed to see what you missed. I mean, this is a part of her grade. This is her grade.
Yeah.
This is a part of her grade, and I don't get to see what she missed.
Yeah.
And I can't do anything to correct it because I don't know what she missed.
Yeah. What was she weak on?
And this
You
is
have no
20-something% of her grade, and I don't get to see it.
Yeah.
25%.
Yeah.
And the teacher and that's what she said. And so Ms. Puff gladly said, I'm sorry, I don't get to see it either. And so then I went to Ms. Winstead because I went to the next step up. Of course I'm going to. I already went by Mr. Bailey, who is always so kind, and I just cry on his desk all the time, but he's not in charge of it. So then he directed me to Ms. Winstead, and so I went to Ms. Winstead. And then Ms. Winstead said, you know, we can't do that because we can't share the test because it's like a private test and we don't want us to see them, we use them again, da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, that's great and fine. But Kate won't see it again. She'll be taking the 7th grade test next year. So if she sees it again, I don't think that we will go in there without any pens or pencils. We won't take pictures of the test. Or, you know, all those things that I could do if I wanted to steal the questions from the test. You can monitor me while we're doing it. I can sit in your office while we're looking at these missed questions.
Well, they should just come up with a new test and let you see the results of your test.
But my point was I didn't get to see what she missed, so I couldn't make any studying arrangements for what we're going to be studying.
And I guess what, you know, are there things that can be better? Absolutely. You know, do I think of strategic plans?
I think, here's the deal. I think if anybody who made less than a 70, then anybody who made this up, come to the review. They're going to Wednesday night is review test. If you want to come and review your test and what you missed, Wednesday night's going to be it. So all the dumb people come on Wednesday.
But the frustrating part about it is that the state can collect their data.
I agree.
But as a parent, we can't collect our data, and as a parent, we're the one most invested.
I have the strongest influence over her, what she's
I
learned.
would suggest is one of the things that we have been trying to form for 2 years now, 3 years, is a district advisory council. And this is parents who meet from all the areas, represent different schools, and they're the ones who help us know what are issues that parents are having. That's one that easily could be discussed. Do I know that there's an easy answer? No.
No.
But I think then it can be discussed in a group with curriculum and instruction to say, A, what do we have control over, and what can be done? I don't think, though, that proves that we think every child has to be perfect at everything.
No, but here's the deal. If she doesn't do well in honors English, then she didn't get to stay in her honors social studies. So she was crushed because she made an A in social studies, and now she doesn't get to go into honors social studies because she's failing English.
Yeah.
Why is that related?
Those are individual issues that I think probably...
It's not, that's the school issue.
That I think probably exist at more than one school and need to be addressed. I don't think they're going to be addressed tonight.
No,
you know?
I think you do.
And I'm looking at more of the issue of, you know, when you say don't expect our kids to be perfect at everything. I don't think we do, but it's really tough to define at what point do you say this kid's gonna, put this
Well,
package on a kid. And I think by high school, we are very much recognizing they've got their areas of stress and focus, and we're trying to offer that.
Yep.
And I don't know that we can do that at elementary.
And I have gotten to the point where K through 8, grades don't matter. Is he learning what he needs? Is he learning what he needs to get to the next level?
No, I disagree. I completely disagree. There is a great program out there called the AVID program. And anybody who's in the AVID program is doing great. I'll just tell you right now. Every single parent that I know just talks about bragging about this program, and it's so great. And it's the program for the middle kid, not the ones at the low end or the ones at the high end. It's those middle grades.
Elizabeth Alves can tell you all about AVID and her advocacy for it.
It's the best program in this whole school. Unfortunately, you don't have enough resources for it because my son, who needed it, desperately needed it, although he made A's and B's all the way through school, but he had no study skills, no time management skills. We already knew he was going to be a bad student, and his teachers recommended him to be an AVID. But he scores very well on the TCAP scores. So he made the 94s, 96, 97, 98s, and everything. So he didn't qualify. He overqualified to be an AVID. So his first year, his first semester in West High School, he had a GPA 1.6.
Yeah.
1.6.
Working on
And so my daughter now, who is failing English and who is not doing very well in the standardized test, and although made her A's and B's in her math and her science and her social studies, in her honors classes at Bearden Middle in the 6th grade, didn't score well on her TCAP test. So her scores are very, very low. So now Kate doesn't qualify to be an AVID again. And we're coming from the busted family, the first mom to ever be in college, all those other things that get you into AVID. But that didn't qualify because now Kate's TCAP scores or whatever other scores are too low for her to be in the AVID program. Although she made A's and B's in all your honors courses. So she's the middle of the road.
Hang on one second, though. He's been trying to speak for just
I just wanted to know why can't teachers and parents see the test?
I don't know why anybody, you guys work in the system.
If you don't mind, I'll address that.
Sure, I would love it.
Our practice has been, in terms of the test that we give at honors, that parents do have the opportunity to actually go in, schedule a time with the principal.
We do.
Or someone and actually see the exam. They can see it. It's just that we don't allow them to actually copy down the items.
We don't want to do that.
But the opportunity is there. Yes, you can.
We did that the whole year. That's the thing. My point is that because Kate was failing test after test, and Miss Puff did welcome me in every single time, and we went over it, and Kate didn't do that. She doesn't know how to write this. And then she gave her a chance to, rewrite the whole thing, to learn from the big giant mistakes. That's the purpose of education.
But the opportunity is
there.
Yes,
it is.
Once the student takes the exam, then if a parent wants to see what items the student missed, they can go in, schedule a time, and actually see the test.
Yeah.
But we just don't allow them to copy down verbatim the actual items.
Yeah, we don't ever do that. But she welcomes us.
We're talking about the honors end of the year exam.
Yes.
Not for high school. Not if it's a state EOC.
But we're talking about specifically for her
teacher.
Honors in the year.
Honors. She could for all her tests or whatever. Her teachers were incredible. They were, Kay would flub up something. They would call me, ask me, I want a conference, because, I'm always begging for a conference. So, my teachers were unbelievable. So that's the greatest thing about Kate's whole program was her teachers.
So when you go to engaging stakeholders or community or whatever in this plan, these are all the kind of issues that we know exist that need ways to not only address them individually, but find out what really works and get it out to everybody.
I know. I think you should start AVID in the 6th grade. I'm just telling you, I get the resources for that.
Between standardization and individualization. So we all believe every kid learns differently, and we can't make them, all fit in the same cookie cutter, and we can't do these things. But then when there's things that come up, how come we don't do that in our school? So I don't know.
No, she can't.
You're
not allowed to see.
She
said you can see honors and reports.
Just one more point of clarification.
No, the honors test.
For any local exam that is given, whether it's high school or middle school, once your student has taken that exam, you have the right to go in and see the exam.
Yeah.
We just do not allow you to copy or copy down the items verbatim. whether it's middle school or a high school. So
Right.
you do have that option of doing that and writing down the skills that your child has missed or the skills that your child mastered on that particular test. The only thing you have to do is just schedule a time with the administration to go in and do that.
So are you talking about the EOCs, particularly the EOCs?
Yes, any local exam.
Okay,
you
but
can
then
do.
they were wrong,
State.
because both those people, Ms. Winstead and Mr. Bailey and Ms. Puff, going down, all of them said no.
I don't know whether there's a misunderstanding, but again, that practice has been observed in Knox County as long as I've been a teacher and a principal as well.
Well, is it a sixth grade, so it's really technically a TCAP?
No.
It was the ESE.
Yeah, that's
Teacher's
totally
not gonna
different.
get
Anyway, the other thing I will just add
Okay,
in
thank you.
trying to just let some people go home, and I'll stay and answer questions. As we look at the strategic plan, get your feedback to board members, get your feedback to the superintendent, get your
They've already
feedback
changed
to
it
the
now.
website that has a point
Right.
to give feedback. We'll be discussing it in pretty
They've
great
already
detail
revised it
probably
more.
Monday. The vote is on
And then
Wednesday.
they put Wednesday, they
Once
just got
it's
another
voted on,
version.
it doesn't mean it's carved in stone. You know, I would expect there to be
Strategic
things
plan.
that change as needs change. So it doesn't mean the window of opportunity and door is closed and, you know, therefore I'll talk about it. And as we go through different components of it, like how to look at best practices, how to identify concerns, how to engage community groups, you know, that's where we need people to be involved throughout the process as opposed to at these peak times and everybody's busy. But the truth is, if you've got a kid in school,
That's the most
your
important.
child will do best if you keep up with what's going on in the school.
You never got to, I know that we're not moving to a balanced calendar anytime soon. We've got 2 years already, and I know that's something that's
Going to be discussed, yeah.
on your, I'm not a big fan of it, not a 6-week. I think
No
the
way,
summer break
no
needs
way.
to be longer.
Mhm.
I know my kids are on summer swim, so maybe that's a little selfish on my part, but we enjoy that time off. And quite frankly, school has gotten very stressful. And that time off in the summer is it used to be that I'd send them out the door, couldn't wait to get rid of them. And now I'm like, I'm not ready for school yet. As a parent, I need,
More time.
yeah, digestion.
I'm the same
So-
person.
And I would
You can
just say
it.
that varies everywhere, and so that's
We'll be
why
in
that's
Asheville
going to
in a
be
couple
one of
weeks.
those things that's going to be a huge community discussion when we get to that. A lot of people, you know, the media wants to put something out there.
Yeah.
So they're putting this as the proposed calendar. It's not the proposed calendar. I mean, there may be many variations of a calendar. We probably will look at what a lot of places do and evaluate how they're best and see where we go. But I think it'll be like every other issue. You're going to hear a lot of people really advocate for it, parents too, and you're going to hear a lot of people who are I mean, we did just regular calendar talks 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that were just overwhelming. You know, to the point of paying UT to do a survey, to really look at everything, and the bottom line is a lot of people want A, and a lot of people want B, and some people want C, and you finally just have to make what decision works best. But that will be fully vetted before any votes happen on that.
Do you have any kind of time frame on that?
Do you have any idea, like a year?
I'm going back to Dr. Lindsay's world-class school system.
Yeah.
We've been through this.
Yeah.
You know, we know it's not revenue neutral. We know it's going to be expensive to implement all the programs. We know it's not going to happen the way it's being presented to us.
Well, but
All you're gonna
it's
do
not
is
being
pay.
presented to you. That's the problem. It's being
Well, yeah,
presented
that's part
to
of
you
the
by the
problem.
media, you know? So we really
It's in the
have,
plan.
no, the idea of it is in the plan, but not what it will be like and what we're going to do with the week off or any of that. That's what the media is presenting.
Yeah, I know. You got the camel's nose under the tent.
Yes. Like schedule. How's that?
It gives you the broad strokes of the direction, the aspiration, the idea, the concept of where we want to go and where we sort of have consensus to go. But there's an awful lot of design and refinement that needs to go into it beforehand. So a balanced calendar can take many different forms. With this strategic plan says, we think this might be a good idea and something that we'd like to really explore and potentially move towards. But, you know, a balanced calendar could just be 9 weeks of instruction and 3 weeks off. And 9 weeks of instruction and 3 weeks off and a shorter and then 6 weeks off. That's it. And that isn't revenue neutral. Is that the best way to do it, or is that worth doing if we're going to do it that way? Probably not. The value of for me, the value of a potential balanced calendar is that you do some form of intervention and enrichment. You extend learning opportunities for kids in that 3-week intercession. You also give some opportunity for some downtime in that 3-week intercession. So you have not only the summer where you can take a breath and relax and rejuvenate, but you can do that every 9 weeks. And so
I think that's more disruptive.
As a resource-rich community where we have things like Oak Ridge National Laboratory and the Symphony and the Opera and others, there are some opportunities for some of those community organizations to be partners with us, providing unique and exciting and interesting.
Well, don't call it a break if you're going to make the kids go to school for enrichment.
The Opera's been dying to get to schools as much as and they have all these grants.
They'd just be better if they got after school reading. Do you know what I'm saying? If Kate could just say 30 minutes after school for her reading, it'd be better. That would be the best way to intervene with her. Because
But it will require a lot more conversation.
out of her social studies class,
You know,
so
a
she
lot more
could go to her
community, a
reading
lot
class.
more meetings like this, a
What?
lot more
What
community
good
meetings.
is
Plan to do that over a, you know,
Why
5 or
don't you
6
just
month
have
period,
after-school
probably
reading?
sometime this fall.
Yeah.
And then she just felt
Yeah,
like,
right.
everybody knows I'm stupid because I have to go to reading. She has a whole label about herself being
Small
stupid.
one, keep in mind, but they've been on this calendar for 15 years or so, and it works. And there was resistance to it before, so, you know, there's also going to have to be some research done as far as, okay, how would a balanced calendar work with a system this size? I know, I live in Oak Ridge, one school does it, the others do not.
I like that.
It's going to cost you too much. It's going to
But I
cost
think
you
they're
too
getting
much.
ready to go to a balanced calendar, but yet Oak Ridge is a smaller school system, so, you know,
You can't
that's
afford it.
actually one thing I was like, I didn't see it as set in stone, but it is an option, and so sometimes I get a little aggravated when I hear, it won't work. But then you have some research saying, yeah, it does. Your opinion doesn't mean that it doesn't work because you don't like it. But then, you know, you can also balance it out with some that say it's not necessarily working.
Well, I want my
But
money
we
to go
have-
to the teacher, to my students. I don't want my money going anywhere else.
But it has to, but again, we have a very unique situation, whereas our county is huge.
Yeah.
And
It'll cost too much.
Yeah, so that's something that they're going to have to look at is, okay, what's it going to cost to do that?
There's no
in a
other
county
program because
this
there's,
size?
we have to.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of looking, and then in the end,
Air
you
conditioning.
can have all, you
Oh,
know,
you know, we already
American
did those studies.
engineer,
I have all
and
those
he can
published
get
if you want to
into
see.
data overload.
Over
And in the end, you know,
$200,000.
to say, where are we trying to go with our kids? Does this get us there quicker? Does it get us there
Exactly.
better or not?
If your
And then
goal
make
is
a
to quit.
decision based on all the input that you can get. So, you know, I think we have advantages in that we can look at local, you know, areas around us that have done it
But
for
they're all
many
really
years.
small
how it
schools.
has
No, it's
been.
not.
I
You
do
can't-
know
you
that
can't
when we
afford
were
it.
doing the...
Just the manpower alone, we won't be able to afford the
what was it?
manpower to do it.
World-class school system.
World-class school system. One of the things we talked about trying was to find a two-year system and just trial it. And it was real clear that you either have to go all in
Or all out.
because everything has to adapt to it. Daycares have to adapt, community centers have to adapt, employment adapts, swim teams, athletic teams. There's so many things. So to trial it, that's the only thing I can say, in my opinion, that is formed on this issue is I would be adamantly against a partial community trial. We don't even have clean enough feeder patterns to do that. You know, a family will either be able to change things or not, but they can't have one kid
My
who's
middle
off
school
for
has
3
11
weeks
feeder
and another
schools.
who's
How are you
in
going to do
school,
that?
and you know, as a mom, that would drive me absolutely nuts. So, yeah, that'll be a lovely discussion, and
When do you think that'll start?
well,
It'll start?
he was saying sometime in the fall we'll
Okay.
talk about it.
All right.
That's where the discussion will start. I don't see that as being a decision that's going to be made over a 2-month period.
No, it's several, I think it'll be several months and,
Lots of
discussion,
meetings.
yeah.
Well, we will definitely get the word out and you know what? Those kind of issues, we don't really even have to get the word out. The word will get out.
Yeah, yeah.
And you'll know,
Yeah.
you'll all know. And
Nashville
I
3
would
times
just say,
for that
just
one,
try to,
girlfriend.
you know, as you get those kind of things, identify issues and communicate as soon as you can. A lot of times people want to wait, but as soon as, you know, particularly when we hear some things that are like, gosh, It doesn't matter that 20 people sat there and tried to think about what's best. One person comes in and says, well, why don't you, and it just makes sense, and we can incorporate it as it's developed and all of these. So guys, feel free to contact me, contact your other board members if I'm not the board member. Feel free to share your thoughts. Please stay involved. That's what we need to do.
That's so good. If you look on this plan, if you look at page 9, we talk about the whole child, we talk about the arts, music, leadership, wellness, cultural awareness. When we talk about that, I think we really address exactly the point that he was making, and I hope that people will take a look at that on page 9 and see if that addresses the
and I think we
issue.
that
I think we
changed
wholeheartedly agree
because
with
of
that
feedback. I think that changed. That's one of the ones that changed due to feedback that we'd already gotten. At this point, anybody who wants to leave, feel free. I mean, don't feel like you're, okay, I'll see you.
Don't you leave yet either.
Go, girl.
It actually deals with this, we were talking about, doing what's best for the kids and, how they're not widgets that fit into one particular place. Reading this is probably the part that really made me whistle with the part of earned autonomy. So before I think of my interpretation of it, what exactly was the intention behind the earned autonomy?
Yeah, and I still
read it in the context. What does it say?
Okay, well it says here
it's kind of like having a standard practice.
Goals to Initiative 6. Give more autonomy to effective teachers and principals. The heading sounds good. Okay.
Yeah.
We want to foster innovation and creative thinking and leading in our district. For those teachers and principals who have a proven track record of success, we will explore the possibility of providing some formal and explicit autonomies and flexibility. This concept of earned autonomy would both recognize the terrific work of our most effective educators and leaders and also serve as opportunities to foster even greater innovation, as some of our best people will have broad latitude to explore new educational strategies and practices.
So who wants to talk about that one on the education votes?
All right, is that going to get past your coach, like the weekly meeting you're having with the coach? Do those people have to get past the coach to do?
Let's let you talk.
So I think you want to look at that section just above it, which is where we clarify and articulate flexibility and autonomy. Because I think the first thing we want to
Will they be labeled so I can get my child in there?
say is that there's a lot of different understandings of the level of flexibility and autonomy that's available in the Knox County schools right now, both for teachers and for school principals. Some will say, I have broad latitude to do this or that. That is, is their understanding. Others will say, boy, I'm so constrained that I have to live within this box. And I think so what that tells me is we first of all need to clarify what flexibility and autonomy is.
There isn't a standardized box that everybody's in? No?
Talking about the teachers.
No, well, there's not a standardized level of experience.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
You guys do really well at swim.
I say,
Oh, you're all over the place.
There are people who have understood that. They would have said, where I would have said, you have the freedom to make that choice. They would have said, no, I'm constrained. I can't make that choice. I have a mandate there. So that disconnect has been very clear through this process. And so first of all, we need to clarify what flexibility and autonomy is available. And I think the way to do that is to be very clear about what's required and mandated and what our directives, and everything else is flexibility. Everything else is autonomy. And my personal philosophy is to lean, on that the side of flexibility and autonomy. I think we recognize that our teachers do a great job, our principals do a great job, that we have terrific people who are very capable of exercising their professional judgment in ways that are going to be beneficial to our kids. And then the second part of that is really, I think, to really take that a step further. And I guess when I think about that, I think about a very real situation. Someone like a John Razik, who we had at Fulton High School, great principal, getting great results, very innovative thinker. And so, my job when he was principal was really to support him and sort of give him broad flexibility to do what he felt like he needed to do to increase student learning in that building. And that's what we did.
And that sounds very rational and reasonable, but that's not how this works.
Okay, well, tell me how you read it.
At least this reads me seeing that this concept is of earned autonomy with both, right before that, who teachers and principals have a proven track record of success. We will explore the possibility of providing some formal and explicit autonomies and flexibilities. So reading that as a teacher and having some situations where it's just like, well, that's not necessarily how to do it. Well, that's the way that we do it at this school. It seems as if I have to play the game, and then if I win the game, then okay, well, let's see what else you would like to do.
But I'm going to tell you what autonomy is. You don't get to decide what autonomy is.
Right.
How it reads.
And as a parent, I want to find out what teacher has the autonomy, because I want my student to be in the teacher with the one that has the most autonomy and the most flexibility. If I'm the yaya parent on the bottom, I'm just the kid on the bottom.
To do or how to do it.
I want to know who's labeled as the autonomous
It's like if I
teacher.
play the game according to your rules, and I do okay with it, and I'm like, okay, well now you can put some of your creativity and innovation and things like that in it. That's how it reads to me.
So we may want to work the language a little bit.
Yeah, it's very
the idea is a baseline of relatively broad and clear flexibility and autonomy, and that we can provide even more provide even more autonomy where we're seeing great success for kids. I think that's important. I think it's important to say
makes sense.
there are certain situations where we're not seeing the type of outcomes that we should see for children.
Sometimes I don't want that teacher there. Why don't you just get rid of
it? Wide open to say you can do whatever you want because you're not seeing gains for kids. I think in some situations, there are going to be times when we're a little more corrective if we're not getting the kind of results that we need to get for kids. If we're not seeing students learn, then I don't think that's when you say, well,
try something else.
Take it from there and do whatever you want. I think where we see we're getting results, where we see kids are learning, and we're seeing a school or a classroom or kids moving in a really positive direction. I think that's a place where we do say, okay, if you want to do something innovative, you want to do something different, you want to do something a little bit outside the box, go for it. Because we know that you have done great work and you have the ability to really move student learning.
And I would say to some extent that happens a lot already. I think there are some, though, that would do that more if they really knew that that was a possibility. But I will tell you, I see some teachers that do some things that I guarantee you is not happening in other classes. And, they have that freedom. But I also hear people who say they don't. And the truth is, there does have to be a standard that's met. You can't just give that free rein to everybody, because that kind of goes back to the old days of when you go in your classroom, nobody knows what you're doing, and we know that as an overall system, the results in our kids weren't that good. We weren't where we needed to be.
It just seems backwards to me.
So the wording
that we should be able to try new things and take risks and things like that. Because I'll be honest, I'm not a terribly risky teacher, but if I see something, I'm like, I want to try that. Well, it may not necessarily look like what others may be doing or whatever, but does that mean that I have to? I have to play it your way first before I can try my way. That's the way it kind of reads.
Can I jump into just from the perspective of an instructional leader?
Yes.
I'm comfortable with earned, and I'll tell you why. Because when I hear earned, that says accountability. And the stakes are incredibly high when you are doing something in a classroom that's not based on best practice. And so as you get student outcomes, then I'm comfortable saying, hey, you have a little more autonomy. But candidly speaking, and Chuck can speak to this because we're colleagues at West Valley, if you don't get desired student outcomes, you don't have a lot of autonomy.
And I get that, and I totally agree with that, where it's like, okay, we tried it your way, or we let you try it your way, and it did not quite work. So now we need to pull back the reins a little bit. But like I said, it's just
But I didn't hear her say that.
No.
Yeah, well, I thought that's what I heard
I
Dr. McIntyre saying. You know, we'll let you do it, but we might have to pull the reins in a little bit too.
What about those great teachers, particular, thinking of some friends of mine at Hardin Valley, really great, always 4s and 5s and always good test scores, but not so good test scores this last time, and, you know, they're devastated. So are they not going to be effective anymore? They're still doing a great job, and for whatever reason their scores weren't good as last time, it does not affect what a great teacher, and they do need that autonomy.
Yeah.
And, you know, is it going to be on the entire number, or just your evaluations or observations? You know, the observation part.
So I actually didn't even envision it being based on a number, but
Yeah.
I think, you know, obviously we're going to keep any data point, any 1 year of outcomes in perspective. But I really think you have to look at those two sections in tandem. And the first section is really meant to say we want to define autonomies and flexibilities. And again, my inclination is to be on the side of providing more autonomy, more flexibility to our educators in the classroom who are doing a great job. I'll give you an example, and it's a very concrete one because we hear this all the time, our pacing gun. And there are a lot of people in our school district, for a variety of different reasons, and some of them are probably, I'll take ownership of, believe that is a mandate, that they have to be on teaching this content on this day, on this page, in our textbook, and that is not where we should be. That's a guide. That's not a mandate. That's not a directive. That's not, we don't have to be in lockstep. And I think that's the kind of confusion that I'm talking about in terms of where people understand their autonomy and flexibility. That's where we start and say that is a guide. That is a resource. That is a tool. It is not a mandate or a directive. And so that's what I'm talking about in terms of defining the type of autonomy that people have to start, and starting with that, that level of autonomy, and then even going further than that, and even broader autonomy for folks who demonstrate that they're doing great work for the kids. And that's, by the way, that's the majority of our teachers. That's the vast majority of our teachers who are showing student success.
So one of the things that I will say on that too is it's all again, so will you see this in practice let's say the board votes on Wednesday in October, you're going to see that? No. This will develop over the time period of the next 5 years. Those things I think sooner rather than later. But the truth is a lot of what's in this strategic plan are issues that we have become aware of over the last few months. And, people want us to fix an issue. And almost every time, there were some that were pretty easy to just bang, 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 fix. But the vast majority of them are communication issues, expectation communication issues. How is it done? And, I, for years, have sat on that board saying many different things that have come down. And I'll say, I feel like I live in two worlds. Because I sit in this meeting and I hear things and those make sense and I understand the intent and I understand what they're trying to do. But man, when I talk to the classroom teacher, the language that it somehow got translated down is totally different.
It's like a game on the telephone.
Yes.
Where you start, the second hour start with, okay, the pacing guide is a guide, and that is not the mandate. But sometimes by the time it gets down to us,
today is Tuesday, teachers, and you will all be saying.
that is not necessarily, and it depends upon how the message is received and how it's.
And those are the things that we need to identify, clarify, fix, adjust, and it'll take time. What this does is it's recognized, and there's going to be a focus on doing that. Go ahead.
Well, and I was talking to Dr. McIntyre, one of the biggest issues to me that we have throughout the system and with parents is the understanding of what Common Core is. I don't think parents understand it. I hear it throughout the community as a parent.
There was no education about
Yeah,
Common Core.
we all hate it. Yeah.
There was no education.
I don't think you understand it.
I think I understand it.
But I don't think the teachers understand it. So when you have a teacher saying, what was it earlier, we said that wasn't Common Core,
or?
Yeah, the coach.
The
that-
coach.
that-
I
that
understand
said that
that.
she couldn't
There is a
tell
philosophy
you.
that kind of comes with, once it's learned, you move on.
But
I don't
that
know if
was
that comes
not-
from Common Core, but
Or
there's
just
this
implementation
philosophy that,
sometimes.
Yeah, but see, that's not Common Core. Common Core, you go deeper and you get into it and you learn it really well.
So you don't ever move on
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah, and you back up and you reteach and you get into it. But there's a big breakdown, even among the teachers, about what Common Core is. And that goes on in this system. That seems to be me coming from a different system.
well, that's a state level problem, one. They
Yeah.
didn't educate anyone. They signed on to it and it was
They
plopped in
weren't
the
even
lap.
written.
And we
It's
saw
a
signs that said,
national
I understand. And it says, we love Common Core, and everybody's like,
Part of it's a grade level problem because the early elementary folks who were involved in it to begin with wouldn't sign off on it and what it became. So whereas they might like it in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, in K through 2, it's extremely a different situation. So it's not like all Common Core is the same among the grade levels. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We had talked about K through 2 before, and I know Dr. McIntyre one time when he's speaking with some of our teachers had noted there's a problem with a value added to go from a norm reference test such as the 2nd grade to the criterion reference 3rd grade test. But teachers are still being held accountable for that, and that's still part of their record. Is there anything we're doing to address the fact that?
Do you think there's a quick answer to that, or is it still, because, and the only reason I ask is not to discount your question, but I think that's a big question, and what's most important initially is that heard? And so can you answer that now, or can we expect an answer in the future?
I mean, I think the way we can answer is to say, we're aware of that transition from the SAT-10 to the TCAP, and that
A lot of districts don't even do a K through 2
probably a very
assessment.
challenging statistical issue to try to go from one to the other. Now, the state tells us that they have done that, and that they have done all of the calculations behind that, and that they've been able to do that. But I mean, I think I answer by saying I hear the issue and I understand the potential challenges. But I think that's
When they evaluate national schools and mental schools, I mean, they're not evaluating my school. How do they evaluate it if we're not being the evaluators? I'm trying to record it.
Whenever we get to see results is, you implement something, this is the first year we see results to see what does it really tell you, and I would expect the state to go back and look and say, how accurate are those projections?
Right.
Especially since not all the districts are taking the
Right,
test.
Or anything.
And we've heard for years you can't compare criterion reference and norm reference. So we heard that from statisticians for
Yeah,
years.
and Ms. Carson said it before. I'm not particularly wed to the SAT-10. I think it's a tool that we use right now, but we primarily use it so we have information about how our kids are doing in literacy.
If that's what you're using.
I have a question.
That's what we're trying to get at is, if the first time we as a district or our schools or our teachers really see how our kids are doing in literacy is after 3rd grade, that's just too late. And so if there's a better model, a better instrument, I'm open to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen one.
just a quick question. The Board of Education could potentially look very different in September.
It will look very different.
Yes. Why does this vote need to happen at this meeting? Can it be held off a
Until
few
September,
months?
right.
My thought is this. I'm in my 3rd term. Every time we get ready, and every time the board looks very different. I mean, we had 5 new members last time.
Okay.
So, and every time we get to this point, everybody says, can we hold off? I don't know that it makes a difference. I think that this board, and there are people who have served on these groups developing this, have invested a whole lot, not only of their time in this, but also in being out in the community and getting information. And the plan a year ago, before we knew what the board would look like, was to have it on this schedule. I think that, and I said it earlier, if this is approved, and I would be shocked if new people who come on the board in September say, these are the changes we're going to make to the plan, because it would scare me to think that they believe they can make significant changes to a 5-year strategic plan with very little background information. Now, do I think by the time we have the retreat there'll be more questions, and do I think 6 months after that there may be more? I think there will, and I think that the plan can be updated, revised, how we need it. But to think that the people who come on in September are going to be more informed about all of this than the people who have worked on it I think that's a fallacy.
Okay.
Of course, I'll be there either way. Not that that's a comfort to some people, but it just is. All right, guys, we got 2 hours. Just know that, anytime you want to get together in a group, and I'm more than willing.
Okay.
I do a lot of Panera meetings.
Amen
so
for Panera.
Just give me a call, let me know, and share your feedback. Oh,
Hey,
thank you for coming.
do you have a school email, Karen.Carson?
Are you Sally?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do.
At
It's whatever
whiteschool.org?
the one is.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
be
and it's